Hi, my name is Verity Simpson and this is my recording for KPB205 Assessment 1. Prior to the 1920s, documentaries were confined to the styles of travelogues and actualities, and the contemporary style of documentaries, as understood in today's term, was only created after this time. It was legendary documentarian John Grierson who popularised the term while talking about Robert Flaherty's work and described documentaries as the creative treatment of actuality. This pertinent coining led to a release of a variety of modes under which these unique film pieces could be classified and constructed, each with different content that could be included or negated, and directorial styles that could be applied to affect the filmic atmosphere. The 6 accepted modes of documentary are defined by Bill Nichols as expository, poetic, observational, participatory, reflexive, and performative. Adhering to the poetic mode, Notes on Blindness is the intensely moving and dramatically reconstructed documentary by Peter Middleton and James Spinney that details John Hull's struggle through the loss of his vision and the effects it has had on him, his family, his willpower and motivation, and his belief in God. Beginning synonymously with the movement of modernism, the poetic documentary mode follows in the same vein in that it seeks to represent reality in a fragmented and loosely associated way. Notes on Blindness pertains to the characteristics of the poetic mode by closely observing specific aspects such as the creative pairing of disjointed imagery and Hull's auditory diary entries which record his descent into blindness. In an attempt to see and experience the world in a new and distinctive manner, the multifaceted poetic mode still adheres to the raw material of the historical reality and engages with. The selective and precise arrangement of effects such as the tinting of images to indicate Hull's fading memory of his family, and the slow-motion shots and freeze frames of photographs of images he can still clearly remember, such as that of his eldest daughter, are prominent aspects of the poetic mode. The culmination of these elements stands to offer a emotive and powerful piece of work that is uniquely presented in the poetic mode. As it was impossible for Middleton and Spinney to film Hull's recordings, actors were brought in and settings recreated to construct the footage that would accompany his tapes, in much the same way Leni Riefenstahl had done for her 1935 Triumph of the Will, where she too could not gather original footage. Nichols advocates that the poetic mode of documentary sacrifices the act of filming people directly to instead gather raw material that is then used to formulate a perspective. In the case of Notes on Blindness, the original raw materials gathered are Hull's recordings with the addition of stage scenes and actors. Nichols also states that the poetic mode, along with the expository mode, exhibits a certain level of control over elements like the staging, arrangement, and composition of a scene, whereas other forms of documentary do not have this option. Giving the filmmaker such freedom to manipulate these elements means that scenes such as where John, played by actor Dan Skinner, is shown walking with his eyes shut, shrouded in a hazy and blue and white snowstorm can be achieved. This imagery is coupled with the recording of Hull recounting the memory of his first sense of panic caused by his loss of sight, in which he says he had a growing feeling of doubt and uncertainty, and of being entirely alone. These words powerfully convey to the viewer the confusion, desperation, and fear Hull experiences during this time. Michael Renov, a prominent author in the field of documentary, in his work Theorizing Documentary, asserts that the commonality throughout all modes of documentary is the relationship between the documentary and its real content. Focusing on Reynolds' four fundamental modalities, Notes on Blindness operates within the first, third, and fourth divisions, which respectively aim to record, reveal, and preserve, analyse and interrogate, and express. The audience sees these divisions working in harmony with one another in scenes such as the previously mentioned and others, as where Hull in his recordings poses the unanswerable questions: who could ask him to go through this, and who had the right to deprive him of the sight of his children at Christmas time? This analysis and expression of his thoughts reveal Hull's honesty and candour, while also still allowing the filmmakers the ability to present a documentary in a more representational way, rather than as direct reality. University professor Patricia Aufderheide mentions the constant tension between representation and reality in documentaries, which she attributes to the desire of the filmmaker to produce appealing content that informs an audience about something noteworthy while simultaneously retelling a story about real-life events with truthful elements. Bronowski asserts that modern audiences have become sophisticated enough to recognise camera work and cinematic tricks that they no longer require signposting, nor do they believe that what is viewed through the lens of a camera will ever accurately portray an objective truth. Hence, audiences today now accept that a filmmaker's stylization is inherently linked to the creation of a documentary, and that to achieve the intended purpose of a poetic documentary, significant editing and manipulation of people, objects, and events is often required. In the same way that Grierson uses imagery of waves crashing against rocks as a metaphor to indicate the hardship of a fisherman's life in Drifters, Middleton and Spinney also use similar effects, shown in moments such as Hull's description of hearing rain illuminate his surrounding environment in a way he has not experienced since losing his vision. Hull says, "If only there could be something equivalent to rain falling inside, then the whole of a room would take on shape and dimension. I should also say that this is an experience of beauty. Instead of being isolated, cut off, preoccupied internally, you are presented with a world. You are related to a world. You are addressed by a world." This touching sentiment, spoken from the heart of a man, is uniquely brought to life by the filmmaker's compliance to recreate an indoor scene in which rain indeed falls on every item to melodiously create an audible landscape familiar to both the eyes and the ears. As a film built purposefully around the auditory rather than the visual sense, it is the existence of Hull's pensive recordings that means Notes on Blindness can actually exist in the artistic sense it does, with such affecting solemnity. Although filmmakers Middleton and Spinney have never worked together beforehand, their combined talents and styles come together to use these recordings and create an equally beautiful piece of work in Notes on Blindness. Often the deliberate choices of editing in blackening images or only showing part of an image or scene gives the viewer a sense of distortion and exasperation as they wonder what the other half of the image contains, leaving them with an attentiveness to the effects blindness must have on the mind. Thank you for listening.